So this little music box is playing the song Ghosts by Elaine Hugh-Jones, which she actually started writing in 1948 when she was a young woman in her 20s. And it's a song that went through her life, really. This was actually made for her by friends when she went to Switzerland. And there it goes. And it was made in La Croix, which is apparently famous for its music boxes. And the tune is absolutely stunning. It's the setting of Walter de la Mare.
Sweet thy fate's true exposition, with thy lonely hand, down with the starry tapers burn.
And this song deals with that amazing situation where life is both itself, but also it owes something to the sort of ghostly world, and it's flitting between the two. And that's something that Walter de la Mare and Elaine were both very interested in. And Elaine actually corresponded with Walter de la Mare and had a lifelong relationship just with his poetry. She kept her thoughts in several little books like this, and we're very fortunate to have these as a window into her everyday life and her deep thoughts, as well as this is actually Elaine's piano that she did a lot of her composition on from the 1970s onwards. So it's got all sorts of things in, some things very deep, other things, you know, just in snippets of information. Queen Elizabeth was born on the 21st of April 1926. John Lennon said, "Life is what happens to you when you're busy making plans." The Great Wall of China was built in the Ming Dynasty 600 years ago. That sort of thing. But it also has some quite deep things in it that Elaine obviously valued very much, and she's pasted into the front here a couple of paragraphs about how at the concentration camp at Auschwitz the Nazis allowed an orchestra, and even in these awful conditions, an old lady who survived it said of them, when we played, it was like a divine service, proof of the magic of music. It is extraordinary the effect music has on the human soul. It is the most beautiful thing human life can bestow on one. It helped me and it made my life beautiful. Even in very difficult times, it made me very, very happy. I think that was a very important thing for Elaine, that quote. And I'm sure she shared a lot of the feelings of that lady too. Anyway, Elaine was born in 1927, and well, this shows her obviously a few years later. That's her in her probably late teens. She lived for much of her childhood in Silloth, in Carlisle, and we have some pictures of her just doing the sort of things that all youngsters did in those days, hanging out at the beach. There it was probably freezing cold. There she is as a 3-year-old, and here she is doing a spot of gardening as a youngster with some very elegant gardening gloves, I must say. Anyway, she received lessons. Well, she had a great love of dogs, and here's two. And we know that this one on the right is called Benji. Extraordinary Benji. Looks a bit like the Albert Einstein of dogs, doesn't he? She had quite a difficult upbringing, where she lived with her grandparents because her mother and father separated when she was very young, and they didn't really have any money whatsoever. But she obviously did well at school. I mean, she did some amazing drawings as a young girl. This was in 1941 by the look of it, so I suppose she was into her teenage years by then. Then she trained as a teacher and had various jobs, and one that was perhaps really important in her development was her job as music mistress at Derby High School for girls. And here she is in 1950, when she's only 23. And someone in the school has written a wonderful poem about her. And it says, "The music mistress of Derby High is tall enough to reach the sky. To us, she's known as Miss Hugh-Jones, and she's the cause of many groans." So you can see here, this is Elaine in 1948, and a wonderful picture of her at the piano, which captures her very well, the intensity of how she's listening to the chords she's playing. Seems to come through. Then she got a job at Kidderminster High School and moved to the West Midlands. And really, we know a lot more about her from this point onwards, because she was here in Malvern, and we know that she taught at Malvern Girls' College, and combined that with her work as an accompanist at Pebble Mill. And here is a little piece of paper that says she's had a salary award in 1984, getting up to the dizzy heights of £9,597 a month, which seems pretty good. And she supplemented her work there, and in fact was encouraged by the director of music at Malvern Girls' College to continue with her work as an accompanist at the BBC. And she, on the 14th of October 1980, the BBC paid her £20 plus a mileage of £12.80 for her services. Elaine also was published by Oxford University Press, and she wrote quite a number of carols and pieces for upper voices, which have been very successful over the years, and which are now published by, some of which are published by Caradoc Press. Elaine's work as a composer also started taking off at this time in the 1980s, and her songs especially have become well known. On the 29th of January 1981, her Cornford cycle, a cycle of songs by the poet Frances Cornford, who was a niece of Charles Darwin, were performed, and I will be bringing these out shortly in a new edition, which you will be able to find at Caradoc Press. A major influence on her was Lennox Berkeley. And here is a letter from Lennox Berkeley to Elaine. She received lessons from him, and I think that really started her compositional career. It gave her the confidence to really keep going with her music, and so she's got some editions of the time by Lennox Berkeley. This would be cutting edge modern music back then in 1966. Her music's been published by a range of publishers. This is the Association of English Speakers and Singers, and this is one of the last songs that Elaine wrote that's really got somewhere. This was in 2017, and I remember this. She became fascinated by John McGee, who's a poet from the Second World War. He wrote a wonderful poem called High Flight, and Elaine responded to this with a tremendous song for tenor, which has been performed by James Gilchrist and a number of well-known tenors. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter silvered wings. Amazing poetry and music to match. Now, someone besides Wilfred Owen, who Elaine really responded to in terms of poetry, was Edward Thomas. And here's The New House, which she had set for baritone. Now first, as I shut the door, I was alone in the new house, and the wind began to moan, or something like that. she went through quite a chromatic period, and these songs are quite gnarly, and you know, they take some rehearsal, I can assure you, but they're beautiful and interesting songs. And this is all part of the cycle she wrote called House and Man, the Edward Thomas settings. Likewise, she had a great interest in another First World War poet, and that is Wilfred Owen. And she wrote a cycle of songs by Wilfred Owen called Songs of War, which has also been orchestrated, and they've been sung. This was at the Three Choirs Festival in 2008. Again, James Gilchrist singing a recital and including those in her songs in his recital. And Elaine had a wonderful way of writing songs, very organic. And she says how, having been an accompanist most of my life, I begin writing a song by feeling my way about the keyboard until I find sounds which seem to establish the atmosphere and character of the poem's words. Then gradually, the vocal line grows from the accompaniment until at last I can pull the music out of the air. Music which I hope will be a true partnership with the words. I think that's what every song composer dreams of, and Elaine achieves it. Just want to show you a nice picture of her, which is how she looked when I first met her in the only about 20 years ago, in 2007. She always had a fascination with birds, and there's a wonderful owl, just like the one in the. Did I show you the one in the book? Oh, it's disappeared now, hasn't it? It's up there. Never mind. So more recently, various younger artists have started performing Elaine's songs, and I'm delighted that this performance in Poland will be made up of a new generation of young singers who want to take Elaine's music out there. So anyone who wants Elaine's songs, just get in touch with me by email. You can go on the web to Caradoc Press, and that will get you there. Caradoc. Have I spelled it right?
No.
Caradoc. That's it. Press. So here we have a CD of a lovely young singer called Amy von Walsum, studying at the Birmingham Conservatoire, and she's included Elaine's songs on her disc. And just recently, it was around about the time that Elaine was proper poorly, and this was when the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama included Elaine in a recital performance called Forgotten Voices. But that's the point, is Elaine's music is far from forgotten, and anyone who's interested in song is highly recommended to try out Elaine's songs, which are both sometimes taxing, but there are a good number of relatively easy songs so you can find your feet. But there are plenty of songs for really talented singers and pianists to get their teeth into and find the most amazing music. So just want to finish with Elaine's obituary in The Guardian, which I'd just like to read you a little bit, the bit that people always spot when they read obituaries. Born in London, Elaine was the daughter of Dorothy nee Bousfield and Thomas Hugh-Jones. She came from a musical background with 5 indomitable aunts, who Elaine used to frequently tell me about, on her father's side. And Elaine was exceptional to have great teaching. That's very important, isn't it? And among her teachers was a piano teacher with the wonderful name of Gertrude Boggis. And also she studied with Harold Craxton and Frederick Wadley, who was organist at Carlisle Cathedral, and with Julius Isserlis from the well-known Isserlis family of musicians. So please do get in touch with Caradoc Press if you would like more information, and I'll be delighted to send you some of Elaine's music.